Thank you, Jonathan. I don't know if I'm that great, but working on it. And I should apologize. I think as we go forward, we may want to think about doing things a little bit differently. I was reading about the state of the city in a couple other cities where they actually serve breakfast to folks, and so we'll improve. We'll get better with this. But no, it's great to be here, and I really do appreciate Affinity Plus for hosting, as well as the St. Paul Area Chamber and the Twin Cities North Chamber for sponsoring these business councils. So it is my pleasure to be here and talk a little bit with you this morning about the state of the city in Roseville. I can report again this year that the state of our city is quite strong and well positioned for the future. I can say that both because of the underlying strength of our local and state economy, as well as the legacy of forward-thinking decision-making that has been a hallmark of city council and city government over the last several years. But I should point out that the City Council and staff and many volunteers, including Advisory Commission members, share that credit for the decision-making. It's not just the result of me or just one person. It's a lot of people involved. And as usual, I need to start by acknowledging that more about the state of our city has to do with the everyday efforts of local residents, volunteers, and business people than it does with what the city government does. Our city's success depends on the engagement and success of all the folks, much more than it does on what we do at City Hall. But in that context, we as the city government do have a responsibility given to us by the people of Roseville to do our part to make sure that we continue to make progress toward our community's aspirations. Ever since the council adopted a mission statement in support of our community aspirations a few years ago, I've been using those aspirations to organize and frame my remarks at the state of the city each year. This stems from our community's vision, and it rightfully is the basis for measuring our achievements. And just to remind everyone what those aspirations are, we in Roseville aspire to be a community that is welcoming, inclusive, and respectful. We aspire to be safe and law-abiding. We aspire to be economically prosperous with a stable and broad tax base. We aspire to be secure in our diverse and quality housing and neighborhoods. We aspire to be environmentally responsible with well-maintained natural assets. We aspire to be physically and mentally active and healthy. We aspire to be well-connected through transportation and technology infrastructure. And we aspire to be engaged in our community's success as citizens, neighbors, volunteers, leaders, and business people. So our first aspiration is to be welcoming, inclusive, and respectful. And all of us at the city take this aspiration seriously in all that we do. Just some of the highlights of those efforts in the last year and years include several things. One key to the ongoing, making our community welcoming, inclusive, and respectful is the ongoing outreach of our police and fire departments and other efforts to make new immigrants in Roseville welcome. In 2015, the city partnered again with the Karen Organization of Minnesota, the International Institute, and the Roseville Area School District to host a New Americans Forum. That was held at the Fairview Community Center. These events continue to be an excellent means to connect people in need of services and assistance to those who can provide those beneficial services. It's also a great way to make the connections between our city government and the people who might otherwise not be connected to the city. Along those lines, the City Council is currently considering a proposal to buy a small parcel of land at the Marion Street and Brittany's apartment building area to create a playground that can also serve as a point of contact for service providers to that large number of immigrants who are in those apartments. This is an excellent example of the partnership with many of the same people I talked about in the New Americans Forum, as well as the ability to use grant funding to multiply the impact of city funding and city efforts. And I'd ask folks to stay tuned for more progress on that project as the year goes on. Another effort towards being inclusive and welcoming was the Human Rights Commission's civility training event that they held in the fall of 2015. Representatives from the Institute for Civility in Government engaged the participants in activities and discussions that centered on developing common understanding and finding ways to work together in spite of differences that may exist. This event may be a model for future training of participants on city advisory commissions and other groups. I mentioned the efforts of our police department toward reaching out to underrepresented groups in Roseville, and I should note specific proactive efforts to recruit police officers that look like the community they serve. To that end, Roseville is working to hire community service officers from those groups. And I want to offer special recognition to Ku T, who has been an integral part of our outreach efforts, has done translation at the New American Forums and other efforts, and also is celebrated a significant personal milestone very recently by becoming a United States citizen. And I've asked Ku to stand and be recognized. We certainly congratulate him. We congratulate Ku, and we're very proud of his service to the community and look forward to much more of that. And sort of on a related note, in Roseville, we do also aspire to be safe and law-abiding. And while Roseville continues to be a very safe community, we also know that we continue to face challenges, both in the police and fire areas. Our large commercial base in Roseville is a great amenity, as we all know, but it attracts folks who also would like to victimize the patrons of those stores, restaurants, and hotels. Our police department responded to more than 33,000 calls for service and investigated over 1,200 cases in 2015. That requires a significant expenditure of resources, and that work was supported by about 2,800 hours of volunteer work by reserves, park patrols, and interns. In 2016, the Roseville Police Department is working with the University of Northwestern to survey those who have had interactions with the police in the city, to track performance, and to look for opportunities to improve, and we look forward to those results. Last year, Roseville's fire department continued its transition to full-time firefighters in order to meet the staffing challenges of a 24-hour staffed department. Roseville Fire responded to more than 3,900 calls for service in 2015, with the vast majority, all but about 100 of them, being medical calls. As our population continues to age, those demands for services are going to certainly remain constant, if not increase, from year to year. The full-time staffing model has been determined to be a much better way to meet that need than the traditional paid-on-call model that is used in the past. And in order to make the smoothest transition between paid-on-call and full-time firefighters, Roseville hired 6 full-time firefighters in 2015 to better fill shifts, and also is in the process of transitioning to full-time shift supervision as well. The nice thing about this approach as a phased approach is that we allow existing paid-on-call firefighters to continue to serve as long as they are willing and want to, and transition over time to full-time. In 2015, Roseville Fire also took delivery of a new fire engine, and a new medical response unit is on order, and this is all to provide a more cost-effective fleet to serve our community in fire and medical services. In Roseville, we also aspire to be economically prosperous, and as I noted earlier, Roseville continues to benefit from that strong local and state economy. We continue to reap benefits also from our location and our strong commercial base. New permit values in Roseville have increased from 2014 numbers at about $56.5 million to over $70.2 million in 2015, and that trend looks to continue. We're excited to have Rosedale investing millions of dollars in remodeling the mall, which is beginning this year, and there'll be a 4th anchor store and a parking deck that they'll be adding in the near future. In 2015, the City Council finalized the Community Mixed-Use Zoning District for the Twin Lakes area, which seems to have taken forever, but we think we finally got it done. And this is a way to reflect the variable needs for things like buffering, height limits, as well as controls of the intensity of use in different parts of the Twin Lakes area. It's a large redevelopment area, and we need to be cognizant of all the impacts around and related to that area, so that we think we've got a good zoning plan now in place. And already the Twin Lakes development activity is picking up. The latest example being Calyxt, which is a company that is seeing promising growth in the area of non-GMO food production, and they're moving from our neighbor in New Brighton over to property known as the Pick Terminal property just southwest of Langton Lake. Calyxt employs technical experts and others at the good wages and salaries that Roseville is looking to have in our community. Towards improving and stabilizing our tax base, the city participated in some workshops in 2015 that were actually put on by the St. Paul Chamber, among others. And they had folks from an organization called Smart Growth America, and they led discussions about revitalizing areas of suburban Ramsey County, and specifically along the Larpenteur Avenue corridor. The idea was to do development that provided sustainable densities and multimodal transportation connections, including bike and pedestrian-friendly options. The city is looking to build on those discussions as we go forward, specific to the Rice and Larpenteur area, including our neighbors in Maplewood and St. Paul. And that effort will engage local residents and businesses in identifying the challenges and the opportunities in that area, as well as hopefully creating an achievable vision to guide redevelopment over the next 20 or more years at that intersection. This is one of the city's key efforts going forward and was identified by the City Council as a very high priority in our priority planning over the last year, with a broader focus on economic development as well. In Roseville, we also aspire to be secure in our diverse housing and neighborhoods. A much smaller scale effort to what was envisioned for the Rice and Larpenteur process, but a very good model, was what we did in 2014 and 15 related to the Dale Street Fire Station redevelopment. And that was related to that as well as surrounding properties. Through sustained engagement of the neighborhood and through efforts of the former Housing and Redevelopment Authority members, that process is now coming to fruition. You may have seen it on Dale Street and Cope Avenue with the Garden Station townhome development that is underway. And I just drove by there yesterday, and they've got a lot of walls up and are working on getting those townhomes ready to be offered for sale later this year. And that's just one example of the effort to provide for the diversity of housing in Roseville and to make sure that the housing we have is a good place to live and secure for our residents. And that's the security we're talking about, is that it's a safe and good place to live. Other projects underway include a new Applewood Point senior co-op that'll be built on the old Owasso School property on Victoria Street north of C, and a new Cherrywood Point, which is an assisted living facility being built on Lexington Avenue across from the new fire station. Last year, the City Council denied approval of a mixed market and workforce housing project in the Twin Lakes area due to financing challenges, but we continue to seek that type of much-needed development in Roseville, and will work to take advantage of other opportunities as they arise. Another effort towards achieving the security in our housing in Roseville is that we began implementation last year of our multifamily rental licensing program. Initially, out of the 160 buildings that were inspected and received licenses, about 36 of them actually were in the lowest or second lowest tier of the program, which meant they had the need for the most frequent inspections and the highest cost of their license. But we can say now, through working with all those owners and property managers, that on the next round of licensing, which just happened, only one property was in the lowest tier, and no properties were in the second lowest tier. So we've really made great improvements there. And I think the especially good news of that whole thing is that most of our rental properties in Roseville continue to receive the high ratings and continue to be good and well-managed places to live in Roseville. In Roseville, we also aspire to be environmentally responsible with well-maintained natural assets. This aspiration also continues to see a high level of interest from the community and a strong commitment from the city. Through the city's agreement with the St. Paul Port Authority to back solar projects, St. Christopher's Episcopal Church on Highway 36 at Hamlin Avenue installed solar panels on their roof last summer. And you may have seen them. They kind of stand out as you drive by for some reason. The city, through this cooperation with the Port Authority, more projects like this can be done in Roseville, and we certainly encourage folks to look at that as an option. And additionally, the city is also looking at solar, and we are actually in the planning process to install a 300 kilowatt solar system on the roof of the skating center this year. And that project will provide substantially towards the electricity needs of the skating center going forward. On a little bit smaller scale, the city has recently finished updating City Hall and other city campus buildings to LED lighting, which will be providing a lot of savings over the years. And we'll be updating the city council chambers shortly, hopefully. I was just talking with Gary Bowman about that this morning. And this project helps the environment, but it also hopefully gives new meaning to shedding light on government. It says pause for laugh. On another side of environmentally responsible and maintaining our natural resources is an ongoing effort to maintain our natural resources, and that has come out of the Park Renewal Program. Natural resources efforts were a part of the renewal program, but we're going to have ongoing efforts to maintain those natural resources improvements that we made in our parks over the last few years. In fact, the city holds monthly volunteer natural resources activities in various parts all throughout the year, and this will continue going forward. A lot of times it involves hauling buckthorn or those types of things, and it's a great opportunity for people in the community to connect with efforts to preserve natural resources in their own community. In Roseville, we also aspire to be physically and mentally active and healthy. And as I said, the park renewal program is kind of winding down this year, but a few projects to note from 2015 were some of the community playground builds that happened, which was an effort to get members of the community once again out to help with building playgrounds in the parks. And there was one that happened at Central Park at Victoria this fall, which was especially rewarding to see because one of the volunteers spent some time talking to me about how important that playground was going to be for his own daughter who was disabled and needed a place to play. The city also completed a key pathway link in 2015, and of course pathways are important for being healthy and providing connections in the community. This was along Victoria Street between Larpenteur Avenue and County Road B2 roughly. And in 2016 we'll make a connection along Larpenteur Avenue just west of Rice Street, which will then, I believe, have a complete pathway along Larpenteur Avenue across the entire southern edge of our city. But besides the physical infrastructure improvements related to the health of the community, the city has also fostered ongoing Alzheimer's and dementia group efforts in Roseville, which continues to bring folks together to learn about the issues related to those ailments and to talk about solutions. Also in 2015, the city supported an effort to revisit the Block Nurse program in Roseville and whether to restart it. Ultimately, the group that looked at that made the decision not to restart the program due to existing programs already in place, but the group very adeptly changed their focus and has already evolved into a group promoting awareness of and solutions for community health issues in Roseville going forward, and we look forward to their continuing efforts. And it's especially worth noting that those efforts were largely driven by individuals in the community and not by City Hall. And I want to specifically recognize the dogged determination and continuing energy and effort of Sarah Barcel to keep both of those efforts going. Sarah has many partners in the process, but she deserves special recognition for her dedication and hard work, and she is here this morning also, and I'd ask Sarah to stand and be recognized. And of course, you know this doesn't mean that you get to stop now. And there are flyers. Alzheimer's and dementia flyers are available by the coffee, exactly. In Roseville, we also aspire to be well connected through both transportation and technology infrastructure. Probably the biggest news about connections in Roseville, and it's up on the picture behind me, is that in 2016, in June, we expect the startup of the A-Line bus rapid transit service, which goes along Snelling Avenue and Ford Parkway between Rosedale and southeast Minneapolis. This service is the first of several BRT lines that are planned in the metro area, and our community and our commuters get to be the first to experience its advantages in terms of shorter travel times and greater convenience. Roseville and our neighbors continue to lobby for the eventual extension of the A-Line up to the Rice Creek Commons development and the old ammunition plant up in Arden Hills. If we look more locally, in 2016 we expect to complete a couple of key connections within the Twin Lakes area with the construction of the last leg of the Twin Lakes Parkway, which will connect all the way from 35E to Snelling eventually through the County Road C2 connection. And also we're looking at a potential project to improve the function of the Lincoln Drive, Terrace Drive, and County Road C2 area right around Snelling to make sure that that connection works as smoothly as possible and help with turning actions and turn lanes and things like that. On the other hand, another challenge that's going to be up in 2016 as far as connections in Roseville this year will be the closure of Lexington Avenue at Highway 36 because they're going to reconstruct the bridge on Highway 36 that goes over Lexington Avenue. And in order to maintain traffic on 36 at full capacity through the whole process, they're going to keep two lanes open off to the side of the bridge and basically close Lexington Avenue 100% for the duration of that project. So that's going to create some challenges for us, no doubt. One thing that's nice, though, is when it's over, the new bridge will have the capacity to accommodate future lanes, which actually on Highway 36, they're targeting several years down the road to have managed lanes on 36 similar to what you see on 35E that they just put in between St. Paul and Little Canada. And finally, we in Roseville aspire to be engaged in our community's success. 2016 will actually be a key year in community engagement efforts in Roseville as we begin to prepare for our next comprehensive plan update, which is due in 2018. The state requires cities to have comprehensive plans in place to guide planning and development for the next 10 years and beyond. So this is a very important guiding document for our community. The last comprehensive plan update was largely based on the community vision that came out of the Imagine Roseville 2025 process back in 2005. It seems only fitting that we begin the comprehensive plan update this time around with an update to our community vision. And crucial to that will be extensive engagement of our residents and our businesses and other key stakeholders over the coming months and years. Roseville has continued to build on and improve the engagement efforts that we've undertaken over the last several years, and this will be an opportunity to actually take some of the things we've learned from that process and apply it to this very significant planning process. Along those same lines, as I mentioned before, the engagement of stakeholders in our success will also be important on that Rice and Larpenteur process as that goes forward. So the City Council and the Community Engagement Commission will be working very hard this year to establish and undertake these various engagement efforts, and I expect it to be an exciting process. This community engagement is something that I'm very passionate about in this role as mayor. And as hopefully you can see from this abbreviated list of significant accomplishments and ongoing efforts in the city, we have much to be proud of in Roseville when it comes to the work we are all doing to get closer to achieving our aspirations. As I said before, but it bears repeating, this success and any success we have going forward requires the efforts of everyone, not just a mayor, not just a city council or city staff. Those of us folks are important and we play our role, but it is everyone working together that makes things happen in our community. And seeing that unfold is one of the true pleasures of serving in this office, and I look forward to continuing to experience that pleasure in 2016 and for years to come. Thank you very much.